Sometimes the collapse of a life does not arrive with noise, but with paperwork and silence. When Logan Mercer turned 34, his marriage ended not in shouting, but in a sealed envelope placed on the passenger seat of his truck. He drove north with his 6-year-old son, Ethan, away from the city and toward the only place that had ever felt steady, the forgotten woodland estate his grandparents once called home. The road narrowed into gravel, the trees closed in, and memories rose like fog through the windshield. Ethan hummed in the back seat, unaware of the weight his father carried, unaware that this journey was less about geography and more about survival. The estate had been untouched for years, a 40-acre stretch of forest that time had quietly claimed back. Logan's father had handed over the keys without emotion, as if giving away an object instead of a legacy. But to Logan, this place was refuge. Summers spent here had shaped him more than his own parents ever had, lessons learned at a wooden workbench, warmth found in a quiet kitchen, safety wrapped in routines that never broke. As Logan parked beside the sagging porch, he felt something loosen inside his chest. The house was weathered and tired, but still standing. Like him. When Ethan asked if this was where they would live, Logan hesitated, then answered honestly. "For now," he said, "sometimes survival doesn't begin with certainty. It begins with shelter." The house smelled like dust, lavender, and years unspoken. Sheets draped over furniture like memories waiting to be uncovered, and family photographs watched from the hallway with faded eyes. Logan moved slowly, holding Ethan's hand, grounding himself in the quiet rhythm of steps and breath. Upstairs, Ethan claimed the same bedroom Logan had once slept in as a boy, tracing the stitches of a handmade quilt as if touching history itself. Days settled into a rhythm of repair and rediscovery. Logan fixed broken boards and leaky pipes. Ethan explored the edge of the woods under the watchful presence of Briggs, the German shepherd who had carried Logan through darker nights than he liked to admit. Evenings brought sunsets that spilled fire across the tree line, reminders that beauty still existed beyond failure. Yet at night, when Ethan slept, doubt crept in. Logan questioned every decision, bringing his son here, leaving the city, running instead of rebuilding. He carried guilt like a second spine. One morning, seeking distraction, Logan opened his grandfather's old workshop. Inside, tools still hung in perfect order, waiting for hands that would never return. A half-finished rocking chair sat frozen in time. Logan found journals filled with careful handwriting, measurements, sketches, and eventually names. Children's names, names he did not recognize. Notes that spoke of fear, progress, hope, and secrecy. One entry stopped him cold. "What we are doing isn't legal, but it is right." Logan sat heavily, heart pounding. The man he thought he knew had lived a hidden life. And that life was about to change everything. Logan searched deeper, driven now by something more urgent than curiosity. Behind a false wall, he found photographs, children standing on the porch, laughing in the yard, clinging to his grandmother's skirts. These were not visitors. They were not relatives. They were lives briefly held here, protected, then released into silence. The journals revealed a pattern. Children arriving under desperate circumstances, staying just long enough to heal, then disappearing into new futures. But there were gaps, 3 names that ended without resolution. 3 children whose stories simply stopped. Logan felt the weight of those omissions pressing against his chest. Days later, while exploring deeper into the woods with Ethan, Briggs froze. Ahead, among towering trees, sat something that did not belong. A yellow school bus, half swallowed by moss and time, its door hanging open like a confession. There was no road, no reason, no explanation. Near it lay a child's shoe, rotted and small. Logan's instincts screamed. He sent Ethan away, documented everything, and left shaken. His father refused to explain, offering only warnings and silence. That night, Logan returned to the workshop and found proof. The bus had been used as shelter when the house could not safely hold more children. Inside the bus, drawings covered the walls, stick figures, sons, homes, names carved deep into metal. We were here. We mattered. Logan pressed his palm against the cold steel, understanding that this land had not only sheltered him, it had sheltered the forgotten. What Logan uncovered next shattered the final illusion. A locked metal box hidden beneath the bus held letters, documents, and film reels labeled with dates from the 1970s. The paperwork revealed a truth buried beneath bureaucracy. His grandparents had once worked legally with the foster system until the system itself failed. A facility had been abusing children. Investigations moved slowly. Lives were at risk. When officials demanded the children's return, Henry and Rose refused. Instead, they made an impossible choice. They helped 3 children disappear, new names, new paths, no paper trail, believing obscurity was safer than compliance. Logan watched the converted film alone one night, the house silent. On screen, his grandmother spoke calmly, heartbreak evident in her eyes, explaining why they chose lawbreaking over obedience. His grandfather's voice trembled behind the camera. They knew the cost. They paid it willingly. When the film ended, Logan sat in darkness, overwhelmed. His grandparents had not been criminals. They had been protectors in a broken world. Their secret was not shame. It was sacrifice. Yet the weight of it had crushed his father, who carried silence instead of grief. Logan realized then that some truths are hidden not because they are ugly, but because they are unbearably heavy. And now that weight rested with him. What mattered next was not exposure, but remembrance. In the days that followed, Logan chose balance. He stopped chasing answers at the expense of presence. He rebuilt the porch, planted plans for a garden, read bedtime stories without distraction. Healing, he realized, required living forward, not only digging backward. Still, the past remained close, whispering through trees and tools and inked pages. One afternoon, a neighbor who had known his grandparents spoke gently of the price they paid. The nights of fear, the years of silence, the grief of never knowing if the children survived. "Love sometimes demands disappearance," she said. That sentence followed Logan home like an echo. He returned to the workshop one final time, not to search, but Chinese letter, to organize, preserve, and honor. He cataloged the journals, safeguarded the film, and wrote down the children's names so they would not vanish again. He took the carved wooden bird one child had left behind and placed it on the workbench, a quiet monument to resilience. That night, Logan watched Ethan sleep, his chest rising steadily, safe and unafraid. He understood then why his grandparents had acted. When systems fail, ordinary people must decide who they are willing to be. Protectors or bystanders, silent or brave. Logan had inherited more than land. He had inherited a responsibility to raise his son with truth, compassion, and the courage to do what is right, even when it costs comfort. Autumn settled over the estate, painting the woods in gold and rust. Logan and Ethan worked side by side, restoring not just the house but themselves. Trust grew quietly, rebuilt through consistency and care. Logan no longer felt like a man running from failure, but one standing inside purpose. The bus remained in the woods, untouched, not as a secret but as a memorial. Logan documented it properly, preserved the evidence, then let it rest. Some stories are not meant for headlines, they are meant for hearts. He shared the truth with his father, not as accusation, but as understanding. For the first time, they grieved together. Silence lifted. Healing began. Logan realized that legacy is not wealth or property, it is the choices made when no one is watching. His grandparents had changed lives without recognition, and though history never recorded their bravery, it echoed through generations. Ethan asked once why the woods felt important. Logan answered simply, because good people lived bravely here. As winter approached, the house felt warm again, not from repairs but from belonging. Logan no longer feared the future. He had learned that rebuilding does not require erasing the past. It requires honoring it without being trapped by it. Years later, Logan would still walk the property at dusk, listening to the quiet, remembering the names carved into metal walls. He never searched for the children his grandparents saved. Their anonymity was part of the gift. But sometimes, when life felt heavy, he imagined them grown, safe, ordinary, free. He taught Ethan that integrity is not measured by approval, but by action. That compassion sometimes breaks rules, and courage often carries consequences. The estate became a place of refuge again, not hidden, not haunted, but alive with meaning. Logan kept the journals not as evidence, but as testimony. Proof that ordinary people can choose extraordinary kindness when systems fail. The greatest inheritance his grandparents left him was not land, it was example. And that example reshaped how Logan lived, how he parented, how he loved. The past no longer felt like a burden, it felt like guidance. In the end, Logan understood that the deepest truths are not found in secrets, but in choices made under pressure. His grandparents had chosen mercy over obedience, protection over comfort, love over fear. Those choices rippled forward, shaping a man who nearly lost himself, then found purpose not by uncovering history, but by carrying its lesson forward. Logan taught his son that doing the right thing does not always look heroic.